People think the name of the game with confidence is I never feel uncomfortable. I never have those vulnerable moments. It never feels hard. It never feels stretchy. No. Confidence comes when you watch yourself face and navigate these uncomfortable moments over and over and over. And through that experience, you develop self-trust, you develop pride, you develop psychological strength. Those internal qualities add up to self-confidence. So when you're feeling uncomfortable, it's never a sign that you're lacking confidence. It's a sign that you're on the path to building confidence. Welcome to The Art of Speaking Up, a podcast that helps professional women access the limitless potential that lies within them. I'm your host, Jessica Guzik, and my mission is to help you find that spark inside you that has the power to transform your career in ways you may not have thought possible. I'm so excited that you're here. And now, on to the show. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Jess. I am a New York Times featured podcast host, and I am a career coach for professional women. My work is all about helping professional women build confidence, develop a super effective verbal communication style, and elevate into leadership roles. I do this work because when I was in my corporate career and in my 9-to-5 career, I struggled a lot with confidence. I struggled a lot with finding my voice. I went on a pretty in-depth journey of growing my sense of self-esteem and growing my ability to be courageous and take up space. And I was eventually able to break out of my shell and find my voice and develop genuine, lasting, sustainable self-confidence. And that really helped me take my corporate career to the next level and grow and get promoted and become a leader. And now I do this work because I want to help other women achieve the same thing. And today we are talking about one of the most important things that will help you propel your career forward and that will help you elevate into leadership positions. And that is the goal of you being a more vocal participant when you are in meetings and conversations with leadership and executives at your company. It is so important to seize every opportunity that you have when you are around leaders and you are around executives, and to show them that you are there to get things done, that you have solid ideas and contributions, that you are a thought leader. Because ultimately, your path to promotion at your company is going to be heavily influenced by what those leaders and executives think about you. And it's so important to realize that even though you do a ton of work every day, every week, every month in your job, they only see you for a limited sliver of time. Their direct exposure to you is just a tiny fraction of the time that you spend in your job, but it is nearly 100% of their exposure to you. Those meetings and those conversations that you are in with executive leadership is typically the only time they get to be around you and experience your thinking and your problem solving in real time. So they're going to form a disproportionate understanding of who you are and of their perception of you from those meetings and conversations. This is why it is so important to make sure that you're being vocal, that you're standing out, that you're taking up space when you're in rooms with them, because the more you do that, the more they're going to be able to see how incredible your work is. A lot of us, and this has happened to me in the past, a lot of us fall into the trap of working really hard and hoping our work will speak for itself. But you have to remember that the people in positions of influence don't see 100% of what you do. They see about 10 to 15%. And that 10 to 15% that they experience of you and your work and your thinking and your smarts and your genius is when you are in rooms with them. And so even though it's hard, I know how hard it can be to find your voice and speak up and join the conversation when you feel intimidated. Even though it feels hard, it's a skill worth building because it quite literally has the potential to accelerate your entire career trajectory. And I know and deeply understand the fear and discomfort and feelings of awkwardness and vulnerability that you experience when you're in rooms with leaders and when you're in rooms with more senior people at your company, because I really struggled with this in my 9-to-5 career. When I started out, I was super quiet in meetings. I deferred to other people. I did not participate in the conversation. And I was forced to change that when I got my first performance review. And I was told that I needed to be way more vocal. And I was told that people had no sense of who I was or what my thought leadership was. And I finally realized in that moment, that was kind of when I had my realization that work is not the same as school. And it's not just about doing hard work and getting a good grade, but it's about showing people what you're capable of and having visibility. So I went on a long journey of finding my voice and learning how to be vocal and learning how to push past the fear and the resistance. And it's something that I've helped so many of my clients with. And I just want you to know that with the right tools, the right infrastructure, the right support, it is possible for you to learn to feel not just more comfortable participating in rooms with executives, but also it is possible for you to feel confident and for you to actually enjoy that process. Now, today's episode is the first in a series that I'm doing where I'm diving into the deeper internal psychological change that is going to help you find your voice and participate more in meetings and conversations with leaders and executives. So many people get stuck on this because they focus too much on surface level tactics. They're tackling this problem too much at the surface and they're not going deep enough into the problem. I want to make sure that together we go deep into it so that you can finally start to experience the growth and change that you desire. And that is why I'm going to be talking about this for the next couple of episodes. So in today's episode, I'm going to be explaining and deep diving into two really important things that will help you find your voice. The first thing that I'm going to dive into is why so many people get stuck and why it can feel so hard to find your voice and work through this challenge. And the second thing that I'm going to explain is I'm going to walk you through the difference between behavior change and psychological change. And I'm going to explain how those things are different and which of them will serve you in your goal of becoming a more vocal and confident participant when you are in rooms and conversations with leadership. So the first thing that we're going to dive into is why so many people get stuck with this and why this can be such a hard challenge to overcome. I want to walk you through the pattern that I see most often with my clients when I am supporting them with this, so you can see that you are not alone. And more importantly, we're going to talk about how to go about breaking this pattern. But here's what I see happen. People have a moment in their career where they become aware that they have to become more vocal and they have to participate more in work conversations and meetings. A lot of times this moment can be an unpleasant surprise or a rude awakening. That's what it was for me. I had no idea at first that being quiet and not participating in meetings was a problem at all. I did not think it was a problem because I was heads down, working hard, doing my work well. So it wasn't even in my awareness that this was an issue. And this is the path that a lot of people embark on and experience. For a while, they're actually able to grow and create success in their career, but eventually they come to a point where their next level of growth necessitates that they become more vocal. This often happens the way it happened for me, where you're told that you're not going to get a promotion or you're not on path to a promotion because people aren't seeing your thought leadership. People aren't seeing you as a leader because of how you're showing up in meetings. And so all of a sudden, you have this brand new awareness that you have to change this habit. You have to go from being quiet and being like a wallflower to taking up space and having a voice and participating frequently. And so you set out to make that happen. And you've gotten this really clear feedback. You know exactly what the goal is. And so you then decide, okay, I'm going to try to make this happen. I'm going to speak up more. I'm going to act on this feedback. I'm going to find my voice. And you might seek out tools to help you with this. And you embark on this journey of trying to change your behavior and trying to become more vocal. And what happens so often is that despite your best intentions to work through this, and despite the incredible clarity you have around how you want to shift your behavior, despite your good intentions and despite your determination and despite your clarity, you find it really hard to break out of the old pattern. You walk into meetings with a really solid intention to speak up and join the conversation and not hide and not be a wallflower. But as soon as you get in that room, you find that you are met with the same difficult feelings of overwhelm and self-doubt and feeling small and feeling afraid. And you find that you are unable to act on your goal and you're unable to really make this shift that you want to make in a meaningful way. And then what typically happens after that is you conclude that because it is so hard for you to make this shift, something must be wrong with you. Because you know what is the change you need to make. It's all very clear. And yet for some reason, you can't seem to do it. So you turn against yourself, you turn inwards, and you start to think that you're just missing something, that you're just lacking in confidence, lacking in growth potential. There's something that other people have that you don't have. And you start to worry that maybe this is just how it's going to be. Maybe this is just who you are. Maybe this is a permanent part of your character and your personality, and it's not going to be possible to change. And it's not going to be possible for you to build the career you want. And you start to release your dreams and throw your dreams out the window. And you start to tell yourself, well, maybe I could just be happy staying at the same level and doing exactly what I'm doing. Like maybe I don't need all this growth. Maybe I should stop dreaming. Maybe I should stop trying. And all of a sudden, you're in a place where you feel like you can't grow. And you feel like the reason you can't grow is because something is wrong with you. Now, the reason that I want to point this out is because this belief that something is wrong with you is, number one, inaccurate. And number two, it's going to hinder you from growing if you continue to buy into the truth of that belief. So I want to tell you what's really happening in this situation versus what you think is happening. What you think is happening is that something is wrong with you. What's really happening is that you set out to achieve the goal, but you didn't set yourself up for success because you approached the goal in a way that made it very, very hard for you to succeed. And instead of you adjusting your approach and tweaking and pivoting, you concluded that something must be wrong with you. Now, in order for me to go deeper into this, I have to make a distinction between two different types of change. And once we do this, it's going to be a lot easier for you to understand why you're stuck. Hopefully, it's going to be way easier for you to see that there is nothing wrong with you and that you are not the problem. And finally, it's going to be easier for you to see the path forward and to understand how you're going to achieve the change you desire. Even if you're feeling stuck, it is still possible for you. And we're going to talk about how to make it happen. So the two types of change that I want to talk about and distinguish from one another are behavior change versus psychological change. They are two different kinds of change that require different approaches. And I'm going to lay all of that out because it's incredibly important for your journey of finding your voice. So first, I'm going to define what behavior change is. Behavior change means that I learn to take a different action than the action that I have habitually taken for most of my life. So let's say I have a habit of parking over the line. And when I'm parking, I'm spilling over into the next person's parking spot. An example of behavior change is when I park, I learn to park inside the lines. Another example of behavior change is I want to start exercising. So every day when I finish my workday, instead of coming home and just sitting down and getting into my evening routine, I'm going to come home and put on my gym clothes and I'm going to go work out at the gym. These are examples of behavior change. They are concrete changes to the actions that we take, usually with a greater goal or purpose in mind. Now, when you are seeking to be more vocal in meetings with leaders and with executives, you are undergoing behavior change. You are trying to change from not speaking to speaking. So at its core, you are trying to achieve behavior change. Now, that said, typically, behavior change also requires underlying psychological change, especially if it's a behavior that we have struggled with or that we find difficult. So let me talk first about what psychological change is, and then I want to talk about how it supports behavior change. So psychological change means I am changing my internal psychological capacity. I am changing my relationship with my own inner thoughts and feelings. The reason that this is so important, especially when it comes to behavior change, is that often the reason that we are unable to achieve the change in behavior that we desire is because we haven't achieved the underlying psychological change that is going to unlock the behavior change. So the best way to learn this is by example. So I gave a couple examples of behavior change earlier. I gave the example of getting better at parking within the lines, and I gave the example of going to the gym after work. Now, getting better at parking inside the lines is an example of a behavior change that probably won't require an enormous amount of psychological change because that behavior isn't likely to bring up a lot of difficult thoughts and feelings. Parking inside the lines is a pretty cut and dry, basic, simple thing. It's unlikely that someone who's trying to make that shift is going to have lots of intense emotions and resistance around it. So that's an example where if I just focus on the behavior change, I probably will have success achieving it, even if I'm not focused on psychological change, because it's pretty straightforward. As long as I can remember to do it, as long as I can keep it top of mind, me being aware of the specific behavior change is probably enough for me to move towards it over time. Now, let's go to the other example that I shared of going to the gym after work and adding that into your routine. That's an example of a behavior change that a lot of people struggle with. And one of the reasons why is because it's a more challenging shift in behavior that might bring up resistance and difficult thoughts and feelings. So some examples of the resistance that might come up once you decide that you're going to exercise after work is, how am I going to do that? Where am I going to do that? What if I feel tired? What if it doesn't work? What if I can't stick to it? What if people are judging me? What if I get really sore? What if I don't have the right sneakers? What if? So as soon as we start to embark on that behavior change, we are going to be met with psychological resistance. This is why, if we want to make that behavior change permanent, and if we want to get it over the line, we have to also work on the psychological change. And we have to not just focus on going to the gym, but focus on, why am I struggling to go to the gym? What is coming up for me? What fears do I have? What limiting beliefs do I have? If I don't tackle those, I'm going to really struggle with the behavior change because my psychological experience is causing me to really resist the behavior. And if I struggle to get to the gym, it's not because something's wrong with me. It might just be because I only focused on the behavior change and didn't account for the psychological change that is necessary to support that behavior change. And this happens to people so often in the workplace. They are aware of the behavior change that they want to make. They are aware that they want to be more vocal. They want to speak up more. They want to find their voice. And then they're super well-intentioned, but they incorrectly assume that awareness of the behavior change on its own should be enough to achieve the behavior change. So they go into meetings thinking, okay, I know that my goal is to be more vocal. And they get into the meeting, and inevitably, when they get in that meeting, all of the familiar, difficult thoughts and feelings come up. And once again, it feels really hard to achieve the behavior change. And then they feel like they've quote unquote failed at that goal. And they turn inwards and they think, oh, something must be wrong with me. I must have some sort of deficiency because I know I'm supposed to change this. I've been told I'm supposed to change this, and yet I'm still struggling with it. Why is this happening and what is wrong with me? And what I want to offer is that finding your voice in meetings is a lot more like learning to go to the gym for the first time than it is like learning to park your car inside the lines. It is a form of behavior change that is going to challenge you psychologically. And if you only focus on the surface level change and you only focus on changing the behavior and you don't focus on changing the underlying psychological patterns that are impacting the behavior, it's going to be very, very hard for you to make progress not because something is wrong with you, but because this is simply how it works as humans. Many of our behaviors are driven by our psychological experience. And if we want to change the behavior, we have to focus on changing our psychological habits. Now, the good news is that our psychological experience is something that we can change. And in fact, when we expand our growth process to include not just behavior change, but also to encompass psychological change, that is when so many new pathways and options and possibilities open up to us. This is what I do as a coach. At the surface, what my clients want and what they're aiming for is behavior change. But of course, if behavior change was just about knowing what the desired behavior is, then people wouldn't get stuck. People wouldn't need help. This stuff wouldn't be so hard. So what I'm supporting my clients with is the psychological change that is going to unlock the behavior change. And I hope this comes to you as a relief in that, number one, if this is hard for you, it's not because something's wrong with you. And number two, if this is hard for you, it doesn't mean you're stuck. All it means is you want to go one layer deeper beyond the behavior change and into the psychological change. And that's what I want to get into even more deeply in today's episode. I want to talk about some of the foundational psychological change that is going to support you with the behavior change of becoming more vocal in meetings. Now, in order to understand what the psychological change process looks like, it's really helpful to deep dive into the existing psychological experience that you have when you're in meetings and struggling to speak up, because simply by observing what is happening for you psychologically, you're going to find the places where you're getting stuck, and you're going to find the places where you have the opportunity to change. Can you tell that I'm getting excited about this? I'm getting excited about this because this is what I do. And when we begin to view ourselves through this lens, and when we begin to identify the places where we are getting psychologically stuck, then finally we have something we can work on. We have something we can focus on. We have something we can do that is going to help us change our behavior. So let's start by looking at the status quo psychological experience that you have when you are struggling to be vocal and speak up in meetings. By doing this, we're going to be able to identify the places where you have the opportunity to grow and change. Let me tell you what typically happens psychologically when you're sitting in meetings, based on me having supported nearly 150 women with this process. I see so much of the behind the scenes in my coaching work. I see inside so many women's hearts and minds and brains. And there are some patterns that play out pretty frequently. And so one pattern that is likely one that you have experienced is that you go into meetings with a clear intention of the behavior change that you want to accomplish. You go in with a very clear understanding that your goal is to speak up. Your goal is to be more vocal. You get into that meeting with that intention. And then as soon as you're in the actual meeting and people start dropping in and people start talking and things get underway, all of a sudden you are met with a whole host of uncomfortable emotions. You might feel things like anxiety, you might feel dread, you might feel vulnerable, you might start to feel ashamed or embarrassed, but all of a sudden you feel these uncomfortable, difficult feelings. Now, here's what's so interesting about that experience is that often those uncomfortable emotions come up before you've even opened your mouth to speak. It is simply by having that intention in mind that you want to speak, that you want your voice to be heard, that you want to take up space. That simple intention is enough to cause your mind to go out one step into the future and start to imagine all of the discomfort that you will experience once you open your mouth and begin speaking. And as you start imagining that, and as you go in with the intention of like, okay, I'm going to speak, your mind and body starts eliciting the uncomfortable emotions before you've even opened your mouth to speak. In other words, opening up your mouth to speak is uncomfortable and vulnerable, and it feels scary, and it can bring up shame and anxiety and vulnerability and discomfort. And simply by you imagining that you're going to speak and thinking that you have the intention to speak, your body starts to experience those emotions in advance before you've even opened your mouth to speak. So it is no wonder it is hard for you to find your voice, because who on earth would experience a rush of uncomfortable emotions at the mere thought of exiting their comfort zone? And then who would respond to that by saying, I'd like to experience more of that. I'm experiencing anxiety and vulnerability and discomfort. Let me take the action that will cause me to experience more anxiety and vulnerability and discomfort. No way, Jose. As soon as we start to feel anxious and uncomfortable and vulnerable, the first thing that our mind does, often unconsciously, is it says, holy cow, I don't like this. How can I make this stop? And so often, the only way that we know how to make it stop is to say, you know what? I'm just not speaking in this meeting. I'll do it in the next one. This one isn't that important. It's fine. I'll have other opportunities. And all of a sudden, I take off the pressure and I release the intention to speak up. And then I don't have to continue to feel more uncomfortable. Those feelings will start to dial down because I know I'm not stepping into the spotlight. I'm not doing anything scary. I'm just going to lay low. And what I want to point out is just how normal and human this is. Who on earth would ever feel uncomfortable and then decide that they want more of that discomfort and that they want to intensify those feelings of discomfort? No one ever would want that. That is why the behavior change is so hard, because it involves us having a psychological experience of discomfort at the outset and then choosing to take an action that is going to intensify the psychological discomfort. So, of course, our brains and your brain and other people's brains are going to come up with a million excuses to get you out of the behavior change that's going to intensify the discomfort. You're going to come up with a million reasons why now isn't the time, why this meeting isn't that important, why you can do it next time. And so by observing this pattern, we can start to then understand where the potential for growth is. The potential for growth is in our relationship with discomfort, and specifically in our ability to hold and navigate and be with discomfort. When it comes to uncomfortable emotions like feeling vulnerable, feeling exposed, feeling embarrassed, when it comes to those types of emotions, there are a couple of ways that we can respond. The first way is that we can try to escape them. We can try to make them go away as fast as possible. And oftentimes, that's what we're going to fall into. That's the pattern we're going to fall into as humans. No one likes to be uncomfortable. However, there are other options and possibilities for how we can be with and relate to discomfort. And another option and another possibility is that we can build our capacity to hold that discomfort and still stay empowered in our choices and actions, even when the discomfort arises. In other words, rather than reneging on our goals and shrinking away and saying, nope, I don't want to do it, I'm changing my mind as soon as the discomfort arises, we can learn to continue to take powerful steps forward despite the discomfort arising. And what I want to offer, which is so important, is that expanding your career path and elevating into leadership and accomplishing bigger goals and dreams professionally will require you to hold greater amounts of discomfort. The responsibilities that are placed on leaders, responsibilities like making scary decisions, delivering difficult news, being the one to step out and put a stake in the ground and take a direction, those responsibilities elicit more discomfort than typical individual contributor responsibilities. The tasks that come with leadership are inherently more exposing and vulnerable and risky and scary. And so that means to succeed in leadership requires a greater capacity to hold and navigate discomfort. And as you think not just about your path to leadership, but more specifically about your journey of finding your voice in meetings, rather than you thinking, I'm trying to change my behavior, I'm trying to speak up in meetings, you will get way farther if you can shift your thinking to, I'm learning to hold and navigate discomfort. I'm learning to hold and be with the discomfort that is a natural byproduct of me deciding to play big. I'm learning to play big, and part of playing big is me learning how to be with and navigate this discomfort. Me getting better at not having that knee-jerk reaction of running away from it, but instead of being able to still show up powerfully and use my voice and be part of the conversation, even if it feels scary, even if it feels vulnerable, even if I feel exposed. And listen, this is hard work, and it's really important to think about, is this the work that I want to do? Am I up for this challenge? Because what I don't want you to do is bang your head against the wall over and over trying to achieve behavior change when at its core, you don't necessarily want to embark on the psychological change that goes along with it. It's much better to just make that choice. Am I up for this? Do I want to do this? And there is no right or wrong answer. No one is morally superior because of the choices they make around their own growth and development. It is literally based on your values, what you want, what feels important to you, what feels compelling to you. And it's worth asking yourself, does this feel compelling to me? Is this compelling enough that I want to learn to do something as difficult as being able to sit with and hold and navigate emotional discomfort? Not everyone necessarily wants to take that on. Not everyone necessarily wants a leadership position and wants to take on the discomfort and the challenge that comes with that. You get to decide. But the cool thing is, once you decide, you can use that decision as fuel to help you endure through those moments when the discomfort is trying to pull you back and is saying, just stay quiet, just wait for the next meeting. It's fine. No one's going to know. In those moments, you have to come back to your decision to play bigger, to become a leader, to build your courage, to find your voice. And you have to remind yourself, no, this discomfort is part of the process. Not only do I not want to just run away from this discomfort and avoid this discomfort, but in fact, I want to experience more of it so that I can learn to navigate it. Because learning to navigate it is how I'm going to find my voice, and it's how I'm going to become a leader. Now, something that's so important that I want to leave you with in today's episode is that when it comes to facing discomfort and when it comes to learning how to navigate discomfort and how to continue taking action outside of your comfort zone, even when discomfort arises, one of the best ways you can set yourself up for success is to do it in small steps. So if you're going to challenge yourself to speak up and you know it's going to be uncomfortable, don't start with the hardest, most intense, most terrifying meetings that you have. Start with the ones that are hard, that are scary, that are uncomfortable, but that are on the slightly easier side of the spectrum. Because when we're stretching out of our comfort zone, we want to be careful to do it in a way where we can metabolize it, where it's not going to overwhelm us. So you want to find those opportunities that are your stretch opportunities where, yes, it does feel hard, but you feel like if you put your mind to it, if you put your heart to it, and if you're willing to take on this commitment to be able to hold more discomfort, that you can probably do it. And this process will build so much confidence. People think that confidence comes from not feeling uncomfortable. People think the name of the game with confidence is I never feel uncomfortable. I never have those vulnerable moments. It never feels hard. It never feels stretchy. No. Confidence comes when you watch yourself face and navigate these uncomfortable moments over and over and over. And through that experience, you develop self-trust, you develop pride, you develop psychological strength. Those internal qualities add up to self-confidence. So when you're feeling uncomfortable, it's never a sign that you're lacking confidence. It's a sign that you're on the path to building confidence. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. It was so much fun to walk you through this. and share all of my thoughts and my coaching approach with you. I get super excited about going deeper because this deeper psychological work, this mindset work, it is truly one of the most powerful ways to find your voice in a sustainable way. And it is at the heart of the work that I do when I'm working with and coaching my clients. And if you are realizing that you want to do more of this work, you want to strengthen your internal psychological landscape, you want to become unstoppable in the face of discomfort, and you want to become a leader who can handle and do hard things, you are going to love the way that I run my programs and the way that I guide you through growth. And I would invite you to join the waitlist for my group program, the Art of Speaking Up Academy, where you will learn to find your voice, not just through that surface level behavior change, but through the deeper psychological change that is going to make it possible for you to change old habits and step into that bigger, more powerful, confident version of you. If that is something that you feel excited about building together with me, I encourage you to add yourself to the waitlist for the Art of Speaking Up Academy by clicking the link in the show notes or by going to jessguzikcoaching.com/academy. The past 3 cohorts have all filled up in advance before I had the chance to open enrollment more broadly. And the way that you get a spot in advance is by being on the wait list. So make sure that you are on the wait list. I will put the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye.